Chris Cordani, Dr. Jerome Corsi's producer here. Welcome once again to the Truth Central. Dr. Corsi is on the road as he continues with the extensive research into suspicious voter roll algorithms with election interference potential in several U.S. states. For today's The Truth Central, let's look at a legal perspective on what could be done about such corrupt code, which continues to be discovered and suspected in more states' voter roll databases. We now take you to a recent conversation looking from that perspective with Tom Renz as the fight continues to expose and stop the use of this algorithm as part of the Real Steel series on the Truth Central. You can find out more about this effort and how to donate to help Dr. Corsi, Andrew Paquette, Dr. Graves, and the team expose this threat and stop the Real Steel through the website gods5stones.com. That's gods5stones.com. Now, here's Dr. Corsi's discussion with Tom Renz.
I want to bring on my friend, Jerome Corsi. So Jerome is, a very, very smart guy. And he's doing a lot of work in a lot of different things. His background is political science, and he's looking at some things related to election fraud right now. And he has some massive news. Now, folks, let me tell you, I've been talking about Ohio being a major, major, major target for voter fraud this year. Nobody's talking about it. People are starting to look. They're starting to ask questions. There's a reason I've been saying this. It's because it's happening. I know what's going on here, folks. Now, election fraud, you may or may not know, I've been involved with it for a long time. I haven't done some of the court cases, but that's why I still have my license, because they were lousy court cases. They don't work. We have to understand that a lot of this is a political issue. So we're going to talk about that. Without further ado, let me introduce my friend Jerome. Jerome, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Tom, and it's really great to be with you. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Jerome just before the show, and he's got some massive, I think truly, truly critical breaking news. And I want to introduce this to everybody. And then I want to kind of talk with you about what we do with it, how we deal with it, and some things that have to be done. Because Ohio is if we lose Ohio as a swing state to perpetual voter fraud, we're done. Ohio is right now a very, very red state. It's going to change this cycle. We have an amendment on the books to change the way that we do elections and redistricting. And so if there's fraud in this cycle, Ohio's done permanently. It will become a blue state forever. It will become the next Michigan if we don't fix this right now. So this is a crucial moment in America, because again, Ohio is a vital swing state. If they lose Ohio, the country turns blue permanently. Do you think I'm wrong about this, Jerome?
I agree with you 100%. It's completely astute, and I agree with you exactly. I was born in Ohio. I was born in East Cleveland, Ohio, by Sean Hayden in East Cleveland, Shaw High School. I went to St. Ignatius High School. I went to Case Western Reserve. In 1968, I left to go to Harvard and pursued a political science degree. Got a PhD in political science at Harvard in 1972. And when I was in Ohio, I was an undergraduate working with the political science professors at WJW on Euclid Avenue, predicting, they're calling elections. I was the one who did the analytics for figuring out whether candidates were going to win or lose, and being the early predictor of what elections were going to be. I've dealt with election data for decades. Now, the breakthrough we have is this, that Andrew Paquette, who's a computer genius, I got through one of the law firms here in Ohio, the Mendenhall law firm in Akron, sent me a paper. They were working on some court cases. And by the way, Tom, I agree with you. Going to the courts is the wrong strategy.
It won't work.
It won't work.
And I'm going to just tell you right now that with regards to election cases, if an attorney tells you they've got a winning strategy, the first thing you need to do is find out whether or not that attorney's credible, because I've looked. So I spent the last right now, and this is going to be unpopular with people. People say, "What, Renz? Why aren't you filing cases?" I'm looking right now at a case regarding election fraud and some of the stuff that's occurring with the voter rolls. The problem is the election voter laws and election laws are very complicated. The state and federal are very intertwined. The interplay is complex. And if you file one of these cases wrong, you get sanctioned, you lose your license, and you're done. And worse yet, so under the National Voter Registration Act, it's lose or pay. So whoever asked me to file this case, may also lose big and end up paying legal fees for the government. On filing a case on voter fraud is next to impossible unless we change the laws. Possibly feasible cases, but this is just, you've got to understand something. I don't care what firm you are. I don't care who you are. I know what I do and I know how to do it. And I'm going to tell you right now, I would have filed election cases a long time ago if there was a viable way to do it, but the courts are not going to take them. And the part of the reason they're not going to take them is because the law is quite clear that most of the time you don't have a very good right to file them. It's a mess. We have to fix the laws. That comes from our legislature, not from the courts.
Well, I agree with you 1,000%. And so this is not a strategy to go to the courts. What we found is that this computer genius, Andrew Paquette, and you can see this all on our website, which is gods5stones.com. I can see you've got it on the bottom screen here, god5stones.com. We've been looking at the Ohio State Voter Registration Database at the Department of Elections. And I came into Ohio. I've been working in Ohio now for about 2 months, being here present in Ohio to do the work. And we've gotten a hold of the Ohio database for the voter registration at the Board of Elections, and it is filled with an algorithm. Now, an algorithm is a mathematical formula. In other words, there's a secret intelligence agency code. So this is CIA quality work that is embedded into the Ohio voter registration database. And we also found it in New York, and we found it in New Jersey. And what this code does is it allows you to essentially rearrange all of the registration numbers. So you control the registration numbers in the state, and you're able to create non-existent voters. The criminals can create non-existing voters that can be hidden. It's like a card marking scheme, where you mark cards and you want to put them into a deck of cards so nobody knows they're there. First thing you got to do is shuffle the cards. So you can't insert them. You don't want it to be obvious. Then you got to create false records and get them into the database. But the trick is this code allows you to create false records, get them into the database in a way that they look legitimate. So the state of Ohio gives that voter a legitimate Ohio State voter ID. Now they're a legitimate record.
Yep.
And so then when they come along, they want to vote, the criminals say, well, we're going to use that vote for a mail-in vote. And that person's going to request a mail-in vote, and then we're going to just do it through the computer. They'll get a ballot through the computer. We'll run that ballot through the system. So now we've had a request from a legitimate Ohio State on the record voter ID who requested a mail and voted that ballot. The numbers match. These two certify. They'll pass in a recount. But the point is the voter doesn't exist. The voter is made up. Okay, and this is a cryptography scheme that involves mathematics. It involves mathematics, and Tom, you understand this. It involves mathematics in the way that cryptographers use mathematics. In other words, this is not statistical. This is just a renumbering and rearrangement scheme. It's like when the military wants to communicate a message to the military in the field, they have to put it into a code. So they've got a set of rules that put it into another confused language that you can say, this is a jumbled message. You have to be able to reverse it. You have to be able to have the code decoding to take it back out so you can read the message. So these criminals know where they hid the votes that are made up by them, and they can vote these votes. Now, we can demonstrate this from the mathematics, as we have in both New York and in New Jersey, and it exists here in Ohio. Now, if you take a look at our website, one of the things you're going to see is that we approached the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, and we said, we've got evidence we want to present to you. Okay, now, we did not go through the courts. This was a political argument. Now, we had a meeting with Mr. LaRose. He assigned it to Brian Katz, who is the Public Integrity Division Director in the Office of Ohio Secretary of State. We had a meeting with them on the 21st of August, 2024. On our website, God's Five Stones, you can see the email that Mr. Katz sent me after that meeting. He said, thank you for helping quickly arrange your team and ours for the meeting yesterday. We take seriously any and all substantiated allegations of impropriety in our elections, and we appreciate your promptness in direct communication. We'll keep an eye out for your submission of evidence regarding what was discussed on our call yesterday. In the meantime, please feel free to reach out with any additional questions. So that means now we have an official inquiry into whether or not there are coded algorithms that would permit mail-in voter fraud in the Ohio State Board of Election voter registration official file. Now, the breaking news I want to announce on your show today is that Andrew Paquette has found the algorithm that's in the Ohio database. It's called, this is a very unusual modular arithmetic scheme. And
So let me
takes the numbers, and it's actually there, and it can be shown mathematically to be in the database.
let me interrupt, because I want to help people to understand some of this, because this is something that a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with. So, folks, what you got to understand when you're looking at this is, if you want to change or cheat an election, right? You got to think about what that means, right? So you know that you need to come up with millions of extra votes, but you have to do so in a way that's not that no one notices, right? Now you're going to go out and you're going to do your voter registration drives and this, that, and other, but we all know that those are very intensive, very man-hour intensive. They're very expensive. They're very difficult, and yeah, they're happening. They're happening on both parties. There's more than that, though. There's more than that. One of the things that, going back to 2020, a lot of people have had a hard time with is a number of experts, so Jovan Pulitzer, Seth Keshel, all the people, Doug Frank, a lot of people came out and said, listen, there were algorithms. They did something, algorithms. I swear I heard the word algorithm in my sleep. Let me explain to you guys what an algorithm is. Okay, an algorithm is a mechanism. What they're referring to with an algorithm in terms of the election fraud is it's a mechanism by which the computer can be directed to shift or alter things to achieve an outcome, right? It's the instructions. Mathematically, if you're going to cheat, you have to be able to add things in, but you also have to be able to move things out, right? So if you're going to add someone, you got to know where you add them. You got to be able to move them out, because you can't have a record of the cheating afterwards, right? There's a lot of things that go into this. And what you've got to understand, folks, is that the mathematical evidence of voter fraud is critical, but it doesn't work in the courts. There's a lot of reasons it doesn't work in the courts. So first of all, the math behind a lot of this stuff is so complicated that, frankly, most judges and lawyers are terrified of it. They don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to them. They're not engineers. They're judges and lawyers, right? So that's a very big deal. And it's something that has a profound impact on this. When you take this stuff to a courtroom and you say, Your Honor, I've got mathematical proof of voter fraud, the judge is going to look at you and say, what the hell are you talking about? How are you going to prove voter fraud mathematically? Now, you can, right? So let's take this to Vegas. Let's take it to Vegas, right? So if you roll the dice, if you're playing craps and you put all your money, you say, I'm betting I'm going to get 6. I'm going to roll 6, right? You're rolling 2 dice, and you're betting a lot of money on the fact that those dice are going to come out with 2 numbers that add up to 6. It's not a real good odds, right? When we look at the mathematical analysis of voting, what's happened is, let's take Robert Beadle's work in Nevada. Beadle's did a bunch of work, and he showed you had the exact same proportion of people voting in each county the same way all over the state. What are the odds, right? What are the odds? When we talk about algorithms, what people are identifying is they're identifying things that don't make sense. Statistically, they don't make sense. And so they're creating an issue. What's happening is they're identifying what's going on, and they're identifying these algorithms by looking at the statistics and reverse engineering the math to figure out how it fits. And I know that's complicated, but basically, if you're playing craps at Vegas, you're not going to roll a 6 every time. It's just not going to happen. And so that's what's happening here. Is it looks like we're rolling a 6 in the election every single time. Now, what we have to do, that's not going to fly in a courtroom. Courts already look at elections as political, and they don't want to get into politics. So when you go into a courtroom and you bring in a bunch of complicated math, and then you tell them on an issue that they don't want to deal with anyways, the court's going to throw it out. There is a whole cadre of leftist lawyers waiting to go after you, your client, and your license for bringing such a case. So it's just not the appropriate way. Jerome, what do you think? I mean, how do we explain? How do we break down the complexity of these mathematical algorithms, these computer programs that they're using to alter our voter rolls and to facilitate election fraud, to do all these different things in a way that regular people can understand?
Well, Tom, it's one of the things I've spent much of my career doing, is explaining complex things to people in simple terms. Now, first of all, if you go to God's 5 Stones, there's a lot of videos, which I'm doing town hall meetings and interviews and explaining it in simple terms. I can tell you very quickly how it's done. The idea, the natural ordering of voting data at the Board of Election is, when you register, you get a number. So you should get a chronological number. If you're number 1,175, you should get that came in to register. That should be your voter registration number. In other words, your voter registration number is a function of when you registered.
Right.
So what these criminals do is they throw away the registration data, and your number is no longer going to be a function of when you registered. It's going to be a function of the numbers they assign it to you. I'm the criminal in the state board. I'm going to assign all these numbers myself, my way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the numbers and I'm going to add a mathematical formula to it. In other words, the first one who comes in and registers is going to get number 1. The second one who comes in and registers, I'm going to add 1,111 to that, and its number is going to be 1,112.
Wow.
Okay, now that allows me to have over 1,000 records that I've opened up into which I can insert new records. And I explain it to people like this, very simply. I said, when everybody knows who their firstborn child was, is the one who was born first. People say, well, my third child was really good at music. Well, that's the one born third, and people know who that was. They don't mix it with their children. But when you go to the state board in Ohio, they say your number 1 child is 1. Your number 2 child is number 12. Number 3 child is 23. Your next child is 34. Next child is 45. And the next one is 56. So wait a minute, I don't have 56 kids. Well, I've just added 11 to each of your kids to create space between them. Yeah. I say, well, there's 56 kids in your record now. And by the way, the kids between number 2 and number 10, those are real kids. I just took them from somewhere else in the database and plugged them into your file. And by the way, 3 of those kids don't exist. I made them up.
Yeah.
Now, because I did that, I get to create false records that look perfectly legitimate. You won't be able to tell that they're not real cards, they're real kids. And I give them a state ID number, even though they don't exist. Okay, that's the first step. It's that simple.
And this is really important, folks, because understand something. What they're doing is they're removing the value of a number. 1 doesn't mean you're first in line. 2 doesn't mean you're second in line. 3 doesn't mean you're third in line. What they're saying is you come in, you get a number, and we're going to give it whatever number we want. By doing that, it allows them to put in fake numbers, fake identifiers. And then the only way to truly identify that that's occurring is to canvass,
Yes.
which is monumentally difficult.
Yes.
And then once you've canvassed, and this ties in with work that I'm doing right now, right? Because I'm looking at a case. There's a case, I don't know if I can file it. I don't think I can because the way the law is. So I can show you, because I have people who have done canvassing, that there are errors. There's massive errors. Now, the problem is they're only able to show the errors that they've canvassed and found. So unless I go knock on the door and say, hey, are you really so-and-so? You know, and do you really live here? And this, that, and other. There's no way for me to know whether or not this is a real record or a made-up record. Because there's no way to verify, because they've detached the value from the number, there's no way to actually verify whether a voter registration is real, short of going and knocking on a door.
That's right.
So now what's happened, and listen, I want to be clear here. Our Secretary of State seems to be trying to look into voter fraud. But this is something that is extremely sneaky. It's extremely complicated. And he's not going to be able to identify it unless he understands what's happening. And I know that we're going to work to try and make sure that he's aware of what's happening. But the fraud that's occurring is occurring on a massive scale. And you've got to understand that the voter fraud that they're getting ready to unleash in Ohio, I've heard Missouri, several other very red states, is such that it's literally not something you can identify unless you know what you're looking for. We now know what we're looking for, but I don't think that every Secretary of State in the country is corrupt. I think that there are a lot of them just would never have thought of this. Why would they think of this? Who would imagine that something so complex could be done? But it has been. It has been. And it explains an immense amount. It explains why all these groups that are doing the canvassing find things that are vastly different than what the voter rolls say all over the country.
Yeah, and Tom, I think Frank LaRose is an honest guy. My evaluation of him is he's an honest guy. And I think
we'll find out because we're going to show him the evidence.
And after they've created these false records and got them into the database, the next step is that they have more algorithms, more formulas in which they hide these back into the database. Okay, and then only the criminals know where the false vote is. So if you looked at that vote, it would look normal to you because they may have taken somebody's name and just changed the middle initial and given them another registration. It's a clone. They may have done a ghost registration, made something up. But the point is, it'll look real. And so as the criminal, and I think this is a CIA quality intelligence penetration. I think the CIA has decided to start running our elections. This is intelligence operation quality. It's too complex to have been done. This is not some kid with his dad's computer in a garage. This is professional cryptography. Now, what you can do is, if I was the criminal running the scheme as a political scientist, I come to you and I say, okay, do you want Kamala Harris to win by 1%, 3%, or 5%? Do you want her to come surge late in the day? Do you want her to surge in the evening? Should we have to quit counting and in the morning we have all the ballots we need? Because you see, I'm sitting there watching the election as the criminal, and I know where my secret votes are, my made up votes, and I can pull those out of the stack in any number I want at any time and run them through the system as mail-in votes and get them run through the machines. So I'm keeping tabs with you. And if you say, well, I want her to start losing to begin with, well, I don't pull out as many. Say I want her to come out at noon, well, I start pulling out more. In fact, I can run the entire election, so no matter how many of you vote, it's my running of the election that wins, because I've got so many fake votes in here that you'll never find, that I can overwhelm any vote that you have. And I can do it at any time I decide to do it. Now, there are a couple of limitations. Number one, the fact that we're revealing this and we're getting this so the public understands it and that you can see it, because this is going to be, the math is now in the database, and professional cryptographers have already validated that we're correct.
Yeah.
Okay? And so therefore, when you know it's happening and you see the patterns, it's harder to get away with. And secondly, we can also then, they may be able to steal an election where they needed 7% to make up. They can make up 7% of Trump advantage and overwhelm it. But 12% may be too much. In other words, one of the answers is massive, get out and vote. Go out and vote the day of, overwhelm them with real votes. That's one antidote to this. And the second is, we got to have real scrutiny on the mail-in votes. So when the mail-in votes come in, we got to go take samplings of them and go canvass, so we can figure out, and we can tell you from the computer systems which ones are likely to be the frauds.
Well, the good news is that, I mean, if this were to happen, if someone were to support this plan, the good news is that statistically you'd expect, when you take a random sample of the mail-in vote, that it would reflect the approximate levels of fraud that you'd see across the board.
Correct. And so therefore you can begin to anticipate, you can begin to know which ones to go look at. We can discredit this, because once the system is seen, and by the way, Tom, I think this is being done around the world. I mean, you watch the EU election with 2 votes. First they say, Le Pen is winning the first vote. And the second vote, the left surged. And so I call up France and I call up Italy. Said, Dr. Corsi, there's nobody at the polls. The surging is occurring in the computers. It's all being done electronically. There's no surge. Okay, and so, when you get this, when you see the situation and how it can be done, the intelligence agencies have gotten to the point where they're saying, your vote doesn't matter anymore. We're really running the election. We'll make it turn out, you're in a Truman Show. You think you're voting, you think you're doing something, but we control, with the secret code, we control the lever behind the scenes. And the Board of Elections doesn't even know we're doing it. Frank LaRose, even when he were to see it, these votes that are being cast as false votes would look legitimate.
Yeah, there's literally no way to catch us other than canvas.
That's right. And Frank LaRose says, well, we've gotten rid of all the dead people, and we've gotten rid of all the people who've moved out. The criminals weren't planning to use those for fake votes. They created their own fake votes within your system by imposing these algorithms. This is what card sharks do. And by the way, if the Ohio State voter registration database is corrupted like this, it'd be like a casino that you proved had marked cards. A casino that was using marked cards across the board could never prove that you lost a hand, because every hand you played, you were playing against marked cards. And they could have cheated every hand you had. So no election, if this database is corrupted, it can't be used to certify any election.
Yeah.
And the certification process then becomes fraudulent, because you're just matching numbers and you don't go to do the forensic work whether that number was a real person or not.
Well, the thing about it is this also explains a lot. I mean, I have no idea whether the voting machines themselves are corrupt or fraudulent or anything else. What I do know, though, is that this would explain a lot, because it wouldn't matter whether they were corrupt or not. What this would do is this would be a backdoor way of cheating that would be really undetectable.
Undetectable.
And even if you evaluated the voting machines, you wouldn't be able to detect this because it's from the rolls, and the rolls are controlled by the secretaries of states. They're a separate system. It's a different thing. And really, by the way, I'm going to get more into this. Let me grift real quick because I'm a grifter. Please go to www.tomrenz.com. We need your support. We need your help. Get gold and silver in your portfolio. Go to bh-pm.com. Tell them Renz sent you. Dollar's going down. The gold-backed bricks is going up. I'm telling you, you need gold and silver in your portfolio. If you don't have it, get it there. And please support us at GiveSendGo/RenzLaw. GiveSendGo/RenzLaw. The work we do on all this stuff has to be funded. We do as much as we can for free, but we do need help and support. So please support us if you will. Jerome, this explains. This is one of the most interesting theories I've seen, and the reason for it is I think that the voter fraud machine is multi-tiered. I think they hit it at from a lot of different directions and a lot of different.
Yes, they do.
But this is a core component. And right now, I think what's going on is a major, I don't want to say PSYOP, but
it's a PSYOP.
But essentially a PSYOP. When we talk about, the idea that they're going to have foreign voters, for example. Now, no doubt, that's a great cover story for how it is that they're controlling. Now, notice in the 2020 election, we talked about fraud in the machines and fraud here and fraud there. Now they're talking about fraud in, because of the illegal immigrants. No one in either election has talked about the way that the software and the voter rolls and the that sort of stuff could be being manipulated to facilitate this. No one has talked about that. And if you were an intelligence agency, you would want to have everybody's eyes over here or over here, but never focused on where they're actually coming.
That's right. Tom, 2 points. First of all, people shouldn't feel apathetic because we found this. First thing is vote in massive numbers to overwhelm them.
Absolutely.
So it's a reason to vote. Okay, yep. That's a reason to vote. That's number two. This is a different approach. We're not saying to a court we're accusing a prior election of being fraudulent. No. I'm not calling any, and I'm not going to a court. I'm saying we have found in here a mathematical algorithm that's been applied to your database. You don't know it's there in the renumbering scheme. And it is inherently illegal for the voter database to be interfered with substantively. So a crime has already been committed. Now I say, I don't know who put this in here. I don't know if it's ever been used. And I don't know if anybody's committed voter fraud or not. I don't know how long it's been there, whether it's been used in past elections. I want investigation because I know it's wrong that there's an algorithm in the Ohio State database. And I think that the Secretary of State of Ohio take it seriously and ought to investigate this. And if it's a crime committed, I want it acknowledged even to the, Attorney General of the state and maybe beyond, that a crime has already been committed. Now, I haven't called anybody a criminal. I don't even know who put this in there.
Haven't. We don't know. We don't know who did this.
But I have the right. I have the right to ask, and I'm not exposing myself now to a lawsuit or defamation. And by the way, a lot of the lawsuits and defamation are misdirected. I've worked in elections, and okay, Dominion, you see the votes change. Well, there's sometimes reasons the votes change because the precincts don't always give you the right data, and so sometimes the computer. So because that happens sometimes, if you say that inherently seeing the Dominion computer switch votes is inherently fraud, I can say, no, you're wrong. There could be other reasons. Okay. Or you say inherently it has to be because too many people voted in this precinct who weren't registered. Well, the data is so corrupt and so bad anyway that you can't prove these allegations. You were told Sidney Powell, don't go in and say you've got the Kraken, because there could be reasons why the irregularities you're seeing could actually be legitimate, and there's irregularities. You're leaving yourself open to a criminal lawsuit, questioning about, because the key is don't question in the courts an election that's been certified, because now your threshold is too high to prove that.
Yeah.
And you could be committing a crime questioning a certified election. I'm saying before we ever use this, why is it there? And a crime has been committed to put it there. And so we're now proactive in advance of it being used.
In the very, very red state of Ohio, we are asking the Secretary of State to look at the evidence that the voter rolls are being manipulated. We don't know who's doing it. We can't say precisely how they got into it or anything of that sort, but what we can say is there is substantial evidence that the voter rolls in Ohio have been manipulated in a way that is identifiable. The value of the algorithm is that we can say, hey, this looks like it's been manipulated, and the reason it looks like it's been manipulated is because we can see that there have been changes in the voter rolls that are similarly done over and over and over again. The same error looks like it's appearing over and over and over again, and it's appearing consistently. This looks like a pattern. So it looks like someone put in a piece of software or did something to manipulate the voter rolls. We don't know what it is. We're asking you, as the guy in charge of this, to take a look at our evidence, take a look at your voter rolls, and maybe make some basic software fixes, some security patches, right? Because this is a basic security patch. We ask for a basic security patch to fix this before the election. And if it turns out that the evidence that we've presented you is correct, which we believe it to be, then we're asking you to refer this to someone who does have authority before the courts to deal with it, which would be the Ohio AG. Now, as a private lawyer, filing a civil suit on all this is problematic at best. That doesn't mean that there's not a case, and I am looking at a couple angles, but I got to be honest, I'm skeptical of any private lawyer who says that they're going to fix this in the courts. What I believe is that lawfare is the appropriate mechanism, not law. Law meaning I don't just file a random case. Lawfare meaning, hey, we know what the law is. It's not being followed. There's a political mechanism. And since there is no legal private right of action for citizens to deal with this, we need this to get evaluated and then referred to a prosecutor who does have the right to deal with this, like the AG of Ohio. Now, one last thing on this that's crucial for you guys to hear. The AG of Ohio does have the capacity to do something with this. U.S. attorneys have now they aren't going to do anything because the Biden Justice Department's as crooked as can be, but the Ohio AG is absolutely, without question, in a position where he can do something with this. We need this to be evaluated seriously, and we need someone to take some steps to deal with this, because we will not have clean or fair elections in Ohio or anywhere else unless we do this. It's going to be a disaster. And so we have to, this is our last chance, folks. It's our last chance. We aren't going to get another opportunity. The country's going to hell. We either fix it now or it's not going to be fixed. And so what we're doing is we want everybody to be aware, and we need to create political pressure. Now, this has not been presented to Del Rose yet, but it's going to be. We need him to do the right thing. Then, once he's done the right thing, we need the AG to do the right thing. We need it to be done quickly because the election's almost here. At minimum, a security patch and some basic things on the election rolls have to be done. They have to be done. And we're gonna be politely asking, and one of two things is going to be true. Either our Secretary of State in Ohio is going to end up being a hero on this, or he's going to be shown to be an absolute garbage rhino. I don't know which one it'll be. I'll be eager to see, and we'll be sure to tell you. But at the end of the day, that's where we are. Do you agree, Jerome?
1,000%. This is a political question. This is not this is political. This
Yep.
has to do, and our elections are political.
They are.
And so we're saying it is wrong. In other words, this is a simple Ohio question. I grew up in Ohio. It's mom and pop saying, this ain't right, and it's got to be fixed. And so therefore, all we're asking for is for it to be validated. We have all the evidence. I've got all the algorithms. We can prove it out. We can show them how it's used in their system. They can't deny it because the math is just there. And it'd be a bad idea to try to deny this because, again, we've proven it already in New York. We've proven it in New Jersey. Every state I'm looking at, I'm finding it's there, one way or another.
It's
And
very
it's in
similar
Ohio.
to what Doug Frank did.
It's very similar to what, and Doug Frank's work is very good. We've taken it to another level because Andrew Paquette, this genius, actually figured out the formulas. And I can't tell people how hard it is to actually figure out the formulas by which something is decoded.
Oh,
and when
yeah.
you see a code, you see it's scrambled letters. You got to figure out what's the formula to scramble them. Well, it takes genius level work to figure that out.
Yes, it does.
And Paquette did it in 2 years. It took him 2 years to crack the first one. And now he's cracking them in a matter of weeks because he's got it down. Okay, he's figured it out. Now that's a genius level. My role in here is I understood it, and now I'm trying to explain it. A lot of my career has been explaining people in common sense terms so everybody gets it. And the point here is if I can be the intelligence agent running the election with my computer, and I'm trying to make sure it turns out my way, they're about one step further from saying, I can just run a simulation of this election. If I don't like the way it voted, I can throw all the votes away and I'll just run my simulation and you won't know the difference. Because they want to get that much in control of our elections. We cannot let the intelligence agencies run our elections. How many lies have we been told? How many lies have we been told? A vaccine and Fauci gets the disease 9 times. It doesn't prevent you from getting the disease.
No.
I mean, how many lies have we been told?
Yeah.
That our elections are fair. When the intelligence agencies can plant cryptographic schemes inside the state voter rolls at this board of election level, and the Secretary of State doesn't even know it's there.
Yep.
This is a political question, and we can get this out to the public. And Ohio's pivotal. The Ohio Secretary of State does the right thing, and this is kind of a career-making decision. And I came here to Ohio because I know Ohio, and I believe these people are honest. They may be rhinos sometimes, they may be misdirected, they may want to go with the flow, but presented with something that is wrong, I still think in Ohio, this will be taken seriously. And I know the voters will take it seriously.
I agree with you 100%. We have a very red state with a lot of great activists and great warriors. I can attest to that. And we have to retake the state.
And Tom, I've been in Ohio now for weeks. And I was last night out in Willoughby, and I did a town hall. I've done a lot of town halls speaking to 50, 60 people, but these are the 50, 60 people who are very involved. And I take an evening and go, and I'll do more of this because, I know Ohio, and Ohio is still a grassroots state. And I'm happy to take whatever it needs to be done to make this case in Ohio. I want to get it made here. And then already other states are contacting us. Other states are already saying, if you proved it here in Ohio, they're now taking it all seriously. Because now this is the third state in which Paquette has been right.
Wow.
And this is not by accident.
Well, I'm looking forward to helping you out with some of this. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do, try to save our election, save our country. Jerome, I appreciate it. Make sure everybody you're checking out God5Stones.com, God5Stones.com. Please check this out. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more on this.
And Tom, I'm so pleased you get it. I mean, I've watched your show. I watched you with the vax. I've followed you. You get it. And you're so right about not going to the courts. I can't tell you how happy I am that we've connected. And I welcome your support.
Well, I'm honored to connect. There's a real problem. There's a real problem. People don't understand the role of an attorney and the role of the courts. And they're right that there are legal issues here, but we've written laws in a way that basically preclude us from being able to challenge these elections properly. You don't like it? We need to get rid of our politicians and find new ones that'll actually do the right thing. The SAVE Act right now in Congress is being written with the same stuff in it. We cannot, it prevents a private right of action, essentially. I mean, I check my Twitter feed. I put a post on it. It's not good. So everybody, we got a cut for today, but we'll have Jerome back soon, and we're going to see, you'll hear a lot more about this.